Good morning and welcome to the Courage Coalition. Today I have on I know you guys are going to really get something out of this conversation. Erica Goode has been a certified public accountant for 15 years. I want to take a step back though before I finish introducing you to her, and what attracted me or what invited her, wanted me to invite her onto the podcast was a newsletter I received. I had already kind of been following her on LinkedIn, and so remember, do not underestimate the power of just showing up authentically, okay, and who you guys are attracting. She runs a virtual accounting firm supporting consultants with bookkeeping, accounting, and CFO services, and also hosts the Consultants and Money podcast. She's a former director of finance at Walgreens and started her career as an auditor at a Big Four public accounting firm. Erica is also the mom of two and the wife of a fellow CPA. She lives with her family in the mountains of Idaho. And I don't know if you knew this, but I live in Northwest Montana, so I'm really close to Idaho.
Yes, I love a neighbor.
Your neighbor, right? So welcome, Erica, and thank you so much for saying yes.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This is such a pleasure. You're such a joy to talk to today.
So as I was sharing is I was following you on LinkedIn, and I want to say probably about a year ago, a post came up and it talked about being the 15-hour accountant. And I was like, what? That is so odd. And so I got curious because that's just what I do. And I started looking, and then I read your book, and it was so powerful because one of the things, whether we're in finances or not, now finances have their ups and downs as far as busy seasons, but no matter what industry you're in, there are these thoughts that if we don't work a certain amount of time, or if we don't put in a certain amount of hours, we're either one, not showing up as we should, or two, not going to, what do I want to say, make the accolade. And I really hate that word, but that's what it is, right? So tell us a little bit about what made you come up with this platform of the 15-hour accountant, and how you've made it work.
Oh man, it was, the honest truth is it came out of something that I was embarrassed about. Because I grew up, in adulthood, I grew up in big corporate settings. I grew up in your salary and your title and your accolades define you. I grew up in the last person in the office is the best and smartest, right? I don't know if anybody else knows these, but like if you left early, you were less than, you weren't trying as hard. And so like, and this is ingrained in us in childhood too, right? Like we give away zero absence awards, like
Yes.
perfect attendance, right? Like we
Yes.
literally give our children perfect attendance awards, and telling them like, don't take a break. If you don't take a break, you're the best and you deserve an award. I'll get off my soapbox about that.
No, don't.
But but that's what, like, we take that from childhood into teenage years, college, and like we take it into early adulthood. And so like I was trained to like, you work long hours, you are the best. You make more money, you're the best. And I went through a season of burnout in my corporate career, and eventually like I came out of it, survived, thankful for that. And but decidedly, like, this was not the life that I wanted to continue to be on. This was not the path I wanted to continue to be on. I stayed at corporate for a few more years after that, at a boundaried season. I was very intentional about what roles I took after that season. And eventually I decided to leave corporate, to go be a stay-at-home mom. And I did that for a number of years. And then I really miss the accounting. I like, oh, is that so cringe to say? Like,
No.
I
You know
really miss.
what? We all have our gifts. And if it weren't for people that love numbers like we do, where would the world be?
Yeah, so that was me. This is so embarrassing. I was making PowerPoint presentations about our personal finances for my husband because I just missed the work. And eventually I started collecting clients, and I opened up this virtual accounting firm, and I built it really around my boundaries. And my boundary was that like I was only going to work when my kids were not in the house.
Yeah.
And my kids were, at the time I started, 3 and 7.
Okay.
And 3-year-olds are in the house a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like I didn't have like I wasn't paying for daycare because I wasn't working. So like he had threes preschool. And like threes preschool is like what, like 3 hours a week.
Yeah.
Like this is, and with drive time, I had like 2 hours to myself, right? And so I started at 2 hours a week. And I was like, okay, as the kids grow up and they go to school more, I will be able to work more, which is exactly what I did. Like if they went to school more, then I could work 4 hours a week. I could work 6, 8, and eventually made it up to 15 hours a week. And I found that that was my, happy medium of I could work 3 days. I had a buffer day for the sick days and the doctor's appointments and all the things that children need and adults need. And so I got up to 15 hours and I was so like, it was in such a good place. And when I like kind of put my head up in LinkedIn finally, I was like, oh, and I forgot about the culture of like, well, you're not working 40 hours a week. You're not making the same amount that you used to in corporate. And I kind of like minimized myself because I was like, well, that my culture tells me that must mean I'm less than, right? Like I'm not doing enough or I'm not working hard enough or I'm not important enough to work 40 hours a week. And like it was what I was still happy. Like we can't be sad about the things that we've created for ourselves. And so eventually I connected with this group of accountants, like accountants doing great things. Accountants do great things, by the way, and there are groups of them. And I went to this meetup. It was a whole bunch of accountants just winning, like just doing amazing things. And the person in charge said, Erica, will you talk? Like he before this event, like weeks before, said, hey, can you talk a little bit about yourself at this event? And I said, sure, absolutely. And as other people were getting up to talk, I realized I was an anomaly, right? Like I forgot that like I was different. And I got these people talking about scaling their accounting firms and people who are just crushing it and working and very much like hustle culture. And I'm sitting in the audience knowing I'm going to have to talk soon. And I'm like, oh no, like this is scary. Like I'm going to get up there and then be the mom who works 15 hours a week because that's what I was planning on saying. And I was like, oh, shoot. So I was like, okay, I could totally talk about my old life and not talk about now. Like I could shift this to fit in. Right.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that doesn't feel right. Like, oh, like, it just didn't sit well, but I was willing, like I could, I can bob and weave. And so I was like, no, my turn came and I got up and I took a deep breath. And I just told people who I was. I am Erica. I was a stay-at-home mom after a career in corporate and Big Four. And now I work 15 hours a week on this really limited time schedule, building an accounting firm of just me so I can be home with my kids. And and I was like, okay, like that they're gonna hate me. They're gonna think I'm less than. They're gonna kick me out of this group. I'll just gonna take the flight home and we'll just call this an L, and
Yeah.
and I sat back down and of course in retrospect people are like, tell me more. Hey,
Yeah.
that's really great.
Yeah.
I like that you're doing that. Nobody does that. And I was like, oh, I didn't just get canceled. It didn't just get canceled, right? Like then we're all like, oh, okay. I said something that resonated, not with everybody, right? Like it didn't resonate with everybody, but it resonated with more people than I thought it would. And so then as I'd go about my networking, just in life, and I'd start saying this like, well, I run an accounting firm, but it's part-time. I'm only 15 hours a week. And
Yeah.
they'd be like, tell me more.
Yeah.
Like, interesting. They're like, oh, so you're part-time, like it's just like on the side. I was like, no, 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 it's like a full-time salary, but I only work part-time. And they're like, well, how does that work? And so I started getting all these questions and I was like, oh, this would be so much easier if I just had it somewhere. I'll just put it on LinkedIn so that like people can go read it. Like I'm happy to share if it helps somebody. So I'll just start writing about it and I'll put it out on LinkedIn. And like silly me, I'm like, oh, once it's on LinkedIn, it's evergreen, right? Like, oh no, no, it's evergreen for like a week, right? And so that's where I started just talking about it there.
I love the authenticity of that, right? Like we have such imposter syndrome about what feels so right to us because it's not what we hear about. And I have to like tell you, so I'm a solo firm too, and I have really no desire to scale. I don't. I'm later in my life. I started my business later in life after I'd stayed home for over 20 years with my kids. And you gave me permission. Now, maybe I don't need permission, but I think as a culture, we need permission. We need permission to do it differently, right? And there's been so many, like you said, phenomenal accountants in this industry that are starting to make waves and they're starting to do things a little bit differently. I was talking to another peer recently, and I was just kind of going back and forth with her as I've grown. What systems do I need in place? What are you using? And she like vulnerably said to me, you know what, Corey, I only have the accounting program and an Excel sheet. And I'm like, seriously, that's all I have too. And she's like, yeah, and it works. So why not? And I was like, oh gosh, yes, again, but permission, right? Because we constantly are telling ourselves that because we're doing it differently, it's wrong. But what if different is actually the right way? And so one of the things we talked about before we hit record was the absolute critical importance of the currency of time. And that's what I think about when I think about what you're saying, because we talk so often about, like you said, success and accolades and all those things. But what if freedom, like we talk about financial freedom, and you guys, I understand like what financial freedom means at a foundation, but what if financial freedom means wealth as a whole? So we get to earn money the way we want to, we get to spend money the way we want to, we have time, maybe it's purpose, whatever it is. But what if that definition of wealth changes to the entire package versus what we're supposed to get to? Because what I keep hearing over and over again, no matter what room I'm in, is I've hit the salary, I've hit the title, and I'm not happy. This is not where I want to spend my time. And you bring into the conversation motherhood, and I just think it's one of my most critical responsibilities in my legacy is how do I teach them, how do I show them, from action, not words, what a different type of life looks like, or a different choice looks like, maybe something that I was never taught. I think about it in this situation is this whole success thing. I have a daughter who is she's graduating this year. And so many people are like, well,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Good job, Mom.
She'll be the third to graduate. But so many people are like, well, it's interesting that you don't push college. And I'm like, that would be devastating to me to push something that is not in her heart. Now, if she chooses to go to college, I will absolutely back her up. But if she chooses to go get a job or travel, I'm going to absolutely back her up, because that's how she finds herself. That's how she finds what aligns with her. But again, we push so often for somebody else's belief, somebody else's desire, somebody else's purpose. So talk to us a little bit about that, because you really went into that whole perfect attendance. I mean, we are grooming these kids from such a young age on what success looks like.
Yeah, sorry, my mind went as you were talking, I had this flashback to being, gosh, I would have been like 20, no, I would have been 19. And this is not what I intended to talk about. And I will talk about time, but like I was just telling my husband, I was like, I remember when I was 19, I went to Montana for the first time. It was the first time I ever saw a mountain. First time I crossed the Mississippi. I was from Chicago. So it was the first time I went west, and I went to Yellowstone with just my parents. I have an older sister, but like she was older. So it was just like the three of us. And I just like fell in love with it.
Oh.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is it. And I was like, when I graduate high school, or when I graduate college, I'm going to come back and I'm going to work here. I'm going to work here for the summer. And do you know what I did after I graduated college? Studied for the CPA.
Yeah.
And I just told my husband that I was like, I so badly wanted to be here, but like the world, like, in my mind, you got to pass the CPA as fast as you can. Like, that's what I was told.
Yep.
And the silver lining of the story is I married a guy from Idaho, and now I don't just visit for the summer. I get to live in the mountain. I literally live on the side of a mountain,
I love it.
because the universe is kind to me and it's beautiful. And so I thought about like finding yourself, and like we're so driven by the stories that people tell us that we quote have to do it this way. And right, everything turned out great for me. Like, I'm so glad I passed the CPA. I don't regret that I studied for the CPA exam that summer. It was great. But we have it in our mind that there's a way it's supposed to be. And it's really, really hard to go upstream from that and to go cross stream from that. And working 15 hours in a week and then being vocal about it is really hard, because everybody's like, oh, that's cute. Oh, you've got a little accounting firm there. I'm like, oh, right? Like that
Yeah.
hits you.
Yeah, it does.
But like the time freedom, to your point of like, there are so many types of wealth. And I will give a shout out to the book. There's a new book called The 5 Types of Wealth. It's phenomenal. It talks about just this. There are 5 types of, in his book, there are 5 types of wealth. But time is one of them. And like, we can very much trade time for money. And often we're told that money will make us happy. Like, more money will buy you things. More money will buy you out of things. More money will like get you somewhere. It'll help you retire early, right? Like, and we're like chasing this early retirement. But oftentimes you can give up a little bit money and get a little bit more time, and all of a sudden everything feels better.
Yeah.
And nobody talks about that to teenagers or early 20 somethings or people who are like grinding in corporate somewhere, that like you can trade time for money, and oftentimes we don't realize how good that will feel.
How much more wealthy we will feel in that same situation. You know, I was actually talking to my husband this morning. We just have these random talks, and I was literally brain dumping in his lap. I tell him I'm going to vomit now, so just hold on tight. And I was talking, and then I was talking about a project I have this year, a book, and we were talking, and I said, I remember the first time I actually began to be seen, and it was sitting on that concrete hospital corridor when your mom was getting ready to die. I'm going to probably cry. But I said, how tragic is that we remember to live when we've lost, when we remind ourselves of the importance of our own dreams, our own desires, then when we've actually lost something. And what a beautiful gift to be able to say to our children, our nieces, our nephews, even our parents, because I will tell you what, the last 5 years, my mom has learned a lot from me in our example of how we live, in our example of when we say, you know what, nope, that's just not for me. But, kudos to you, right? Because I'm not here to preach how someone else is wrong. I'm here to say, but if it's not for you, question that. If it doesn't feel right, question that. Not in a burn your whole life down kind of thing, which I've got experience with that. But, not that even. It's just that curiosity into something different. And you brought up so beautifully money stories, right? We have these money stories that are actually truly in psychology world, probably somebody else's story that we believe are our own. You do some CFO services. So your bookkeeping, accounting, CFO, do you still file taxes or no?
I'm capable, but I don't.
But in these relationships, because I have to believe that working 15 hours, you have a close knit group of clients that you know really well. And that's so beautiful. In these relationships, how often do you feel that somebody's previous money story or somebody else's money story is actually the reason they are pointing their compass in the direction they're pointing it?
Absolutely. Like this, it's really easy to talk about. We talk about comparison on social media
Mm-hmm.
among anything, not just money, just like looks, clothes, vacations, right? Like, we're always like, look at that person. And I just had a client who was comparing their financials to whatever the benchmark was in their industry. And they're like, well, I'm at this margin, but the benchmark is this margin. And I was like, first of all, your industry is behind the times. And I think that's a bad benchmark. I think you can do way better than that. So first of all, like, don't cut yourself short. Second of all, like, the benchmark also accounts for people working 80-hour weeks and you're working 20-hour week. So
Yeah.
like, I feel like we have to be really careful whose stories we benchmark against, right? Like, know the whole story. And I think I see this a lot in money stories. I'll talk specifically to my money stories. Like, I come from immigrants, right? Like, I'm first generation American. My parents came here for a quote, for a better life, right? And by all means, they gave it to me. And it is so great. But somebody who literally got off a boat with a suitcase has a different money story than a kid who grew up in suburban America. And those stories that you're taught don't always apply to your current situation. Doesn't mean they don't have value, right? Like, saving money and making sure you take care of yourself because you're going to bootstrap this thing because nobody else is going to look out for you is a really great story, but not to the expense of your mental health or your well-being or time with your kids if you can afford it. And we have to be really careful to identify those stories and then identify if they relate to our situation or if we have a different story that we can relate to.
Oh, I think, yeah, it's just so good because, I'm going to go back to the statistic, and they talk about hospice care and what is the top regret in life of those that are dying. And it's, they wish they had more time with their family. And I just think, like, how can we keep hearing that over and over again and continue to discard it, right? Discard that necessary need, because again, going back to human needs, we need a sense of connection. And our family is that. It's our first sense of connection. So I would love for you to kind of walk us through. I mean, your husband's a CPA also, right? And I'm assuming he still works for corporate, or does he have his own business?
Nope, he's in a corporate job.
Okay. How does that, for lack of a better word, bonk heads, right? Because you guys are both the same, you're in the same industry, you have the same titles, but you have a sense of, and I know that this works for him. Don't get me wrong. You're home taking, being able to help with take care of the kids and all those things. But is there ever a situation as you have pivoted and flexed and changed and grown in your direction, and him stayed in his, or pivoted and grown and changed in his direction, that you guys have had to take a step back and really reevaluate that? Because when you got married, I'm assuming that is not the way it looked, right? We have this thought process that this is the way our life's going to look. This is how our career is going to look. And when everything changes, everything changes. And so I would love for you to walk us through that, because I think one of the biggest concerns I hear is, you know what, my husband's never going to understand, or, you know what, my wife is just not going to understand. And that was, for Chad and I, that was one of the biggest questions I got when we decided to leave Oregon and start over here in Montana. It was, well, what are you going to do for income? And I'm like, well, we'll figure it out. And they're like, well, what do you mean you're going to figure it out? Because Chad was the only one working. I just had a side gig, right? Just a side gig.
This
And
little thing over here.
yeah, I said, I'll grow the business. It's fine. We're going to make it. So many people don't understand that. They just don't get that mindset of, you can do anything, not necessarily with grit or drowning yourself, but with purpose and with determination and faith. I mean, honestly, it's just like faith in God or universe or yourself or whatever it is, just that knowing that something else is possible and it's worth all the heartache.
Yeah. So first of all, I've done a lot of interviews. I've never had anybody ask me this question. This is so good.
Yes.
So kudos to you. I would say the reevaluation for the two of us happened before I left corporate, because when you're, and maybe it was a couple times, but like the first time, as you're talking about this was very clearly, you get married, and for us, it was our early 20s. We literally met on the first week of our Big Four accounting jobs. We met in Big Four accounting in different offices. We were at training. So like we met on day one of adulthood. And, you fall in love with like hearts in your eyes. and you dream about what life you're going to have. Like, well, we'll work and then I'll be a stay-at-home mom and we'll just love on our babies and we'll just have this perfect little, like, you'll go to work and I'll do this. And because we both wanted a stay-at-home mom because that's what we had grown up with for some point in our time. And so that's what we envisioned for our family. And now we're like 5 years into parenthood and we're both working our tails off. And at some point, like we were both like, this is not what we planned. Like, this is not what we envisioned. Like, what are we doing? Like, we said that thing, 6, 7 years ago that we're gonna do it this certain way. And we're not even holding up our end of the bargain. Why are we doing this to ourselves? This is not the life we wanted to live. And that was the point where we're like, okay, I think like I kind of feel like one of us should step out. I feel like this urge to step out of the corporate. And he was like, okay, do you want me to consider that? Like, should look at this holistically? Like, should it be me or should it be you? And I was like, well, I really want to. Like, I want to go be home with the babies, whether that's biological or cultural, like something in me is saying like, I want to come be home with the babies. And he was like, okay, we'll do that then. And so we did that. And then again, I think we had to reevaluate when I was getting squirmy and making embarrassing PowerPoint pictures for my husband or PowerPoint presentations. And I was like, well, I think I want to like start a business. And that was the point. Like, neither one of us were entrepreneurial. Neither one of us came from families that we saw start anything from the ground up. I was like, I have no idea if I can do this. I don't even know if this is a good idea. And he's like, I don't know if that's a good idea either. And I was like, good. And so I was like, well, I'm going to do it because I don't want the other option, right? Like, I don't want to go back to corporate. I know I don't want that. So let's try this, see what happens. And I can always like, run for the hills. And he was like, okay, but better you than me. And I was like, cool, deal. And so I did it. And it was so like, this is probably just more of a marriage story where like a few years in, he looks at me, he's like, I can't believe that you made something out of nothing. And it was such a genuine like compliment. And he wasn't being, snide. It came from such a good place, just like genuine admiration of like, good for you. Like, I'm impressed. And I was like, me too. Because we didn't know how it was going to turn out. And that was also not what we had signed up for. Nobody, on the wedding altar was like, one of us should start an accounting firm. Like,
Yeah.
that's not part of the plan.
One of the things I love when you just described that is there's always this sense of uncomfortableness, right? The sense of the unknown when we start something new. And so many times we let fear stop us there, right? It's just like an absolute concrete wall. But what I hope people are hearing is one is when you step on the other side of that concrete wall, climb it, scale it, fall over the other side, whatever it looks like, you find a different level of you. You find the next version of you, the next best version, maybe the next worst version. It doesn't matter, but you find a next version. But what we also don't tend to talk about, I think, is that our spouses or our children or our parents, whatever, are watching in the same time. And maybe they're not on the same like growth trajectory as you. Maybe they're in a comfort zone and they're doing their thing. Maybe they're not. But when they watch, they gain confidence. They gain, you know what, maybe it is possible. And maybe that's just a thought, or maybe someday it's actually going to help them. And I think too many of us get stuck in that place of, well, he doesn't agree with what I'm doing, or she doesn't agree with what I'm doing. And maybe it's just you haven't given them enough time to sit back and reflect and say, you know what, look at what you did, right? Because love will do that. But we get too wrapped up in them not understanding and that uncomfortableness and all the things. And we immediately assume it's just not for us then. But, I mean, I am a God-loving woman. And, God always said, is it possible? He didn't say it would be easy. He just said it was going to be possible, right? So,
That's right.
I love that you shared that you brought up a marriage thing, because I think that no matter if we're talking about, a marriage or just a relationship, friends, right? Sometimes friends don't understand why we're doing the things we're doing. And we have to work through these uncomfortable situations because they're different in order to get to that next version. So, one of the things I would love to ask you, and this we're going to kind of take a shot. So, we're going to go the opposite direction for a minute, because when people listen to my podcast and they hear there's somebody on there about money, they're always looking for those little tidbits of information about money. And if it being the first of the year, everyone's got money hot on their brain. They're just like, oh, I repeated that cycle again. Why did I do it? Right.
Mm-hmm.
For accountants, if you're looking for new clients, this is the time of year that you're getting new clients because everyone's panicking, right? I would love from your aspect, because you bring in something I don't do. When I don't do taxes, CFO services, I'm really on the low end as far as, I'm not disgrading myself. I just don't do like really intense CFO services. I would love to know what you feel is like the number one skill or even thought process, like mindset shift for business owners, but not just business owners, because you and I both know that how you do one is how you do the other. So if your personal expenses are a mess, your business expenses are a mess, and vice versa. So, what is like one really powerful tool that you have found in your experience in corporate, your own firm, and just your own personal, right? That really seems to be able to change that trajectory for the next year or for the rest of their lives, hopefully.
I mean, for me, and this has been with me since like childhood. This is truly like I landed in the right profession. My bread and butter. You mentioned CFO services, and in corporate, it was always we called it FP&A, financial planning and analysis, and it was always forecasting. And for me, it's a forecast is just a plan. It's never going to go to plan, but it's always good to plan it out. And for me, like having a financial plan, whether that be like, and everybody can look into different time periods. Like maybe you can only work 4 weeks out. Maybe you're 12 weeks out. Maybe you're a year, whatever it may be. For me, like mapping out a plan is like mapping out a to-do list for me. And it points me in the right direction. Like it gives me a North Star and a point on the compass to go forward. And that's what I do for my clients. That's what I do in my personal life. This is like, to your point, like how we do one is how we do the other. Like, you better believe my husband was getting those PowerPoints on like the plan, right? This is the plan for the next year. This is the plan for the next 10 years. And I do the same for my clients and their businesses. I don't get into their personal, but like you said, how you do one is how you do the other. We're planning their personal distributions, or they're
Yeah.
planning their salary. So like then they get to go do that on the personal side. But when you have that in place, when you have the cash flow projections in place, because it's going to be caused by different things, well, that tells me, okay, I have to go get 5 new clients, or I
Yeah.
have to go get 5 new clients and then hire somebody because I can't do 5 new clients by myself. And it starts making you a to-do list of like, here's what my priorities are for the next 2 quarters, next 3 quarters. Because if I want this to happen, this money to happen, well, then that means operationally this has to happen. And my dad always said growing up, he's like, if you can make a box of macaroni and cheese, you can do anything. And
Right.
his point was, if you can read directions, you can
Yes.
do anything. And I don't know why that, like that silly saying just stuck with me, because sometimes I feel really overwhelmed in life, in business. I'm just like, there's so much. But if I can write down instructions for myself or a plan for myself, all of a sudden, nothing else matters. Just do what's in the plan. Just make the box of macros. Step one, boil water, right? Put water in pot. Step one, email referral sources, right? Like, and we just start this process of like, just focus on the one next thing, just focus on the one next thing. And when you start with the big picture plan and pull it back to what does it take to get the big picture plan, well, now every day I can just knock out the individual items, and
Yeah.
eventually that will turn into the big picture plan.
So I love what you just said, because you're really breaking it down. Because, so many people are like, well, I don't even know what forecasting is. What are you talking about? See, that's why I don't like talking to people in finance, because they just talk above my head. Right? And you so beautifully said exactly what it is. It's, when you guys are thinking about this, and if you're a personal budget or a business budget, what I want you to think about is, you can really just use an Excel sheet. Don't get all fancy. You can use paper and pencil. Write out your 12 months and write out, well, like what you're currently spending in expenses. You can find that in your accounting program, right? It's just an easy expenses. And then, okay, so this is what I'm spending. What do I want to make, right? What do I pay myself? Do I need to get more clients, like Erica just said? It really can be so simple if you just leave out the big words and understand all you're doing is saying, what do I want for this year? What is the big goal? Do I want to grow? Do I want to just like stay right where I'm at? I feel like I'm in a really good stuff. Or maybe do I want to go back? I've had a lot of my clients recently say, you know what? I want to pursue this. So I really want to come back. So what do I need to do that? Right? That is okay too, but it's a plan. And, when you're talking about just doing one step at a time, for me, because I'm like you, we have 6 kids, 4 at home, 4 grandbabies, the business, all the things, right? And so it's like sometimes it gets so busy, especially like when we're scaling our nonprofit. And every morning when I'm journaling, I just write my 3 intentions for the day. Just 3 intentions. And sometimes that is business related. Sometimes that's nonprofit related. Sometimes, like for me this morning, I said, just have a thoroughly authentic conversation with Erica. That was one of my goals for the day, right? Is just to be present and not think about everything else. And if we just take it off 3 steps at a time, because we can all do 3 things every day. Like I said, maybe it's clean the toilets. It doesn't have to
Okay.
be, right? It's just 3 things. That's 21 items a week. Right? And we get so overwhelmed in the big picture that we forget what we can do today.
Yeah.
So I love that you broke it down like that. And just as a thorough note, one of the things that I read in that newsletter from Erica was she was doing her yearly planning. So she's being totally truthful. She's like, just completed my yearly financial planning. And I'm like, ooh, I love that, right?
Corey, it's so funny. I have to tell you this story because you're talking about your 3 things. At church on Sundays, they often ask me to do announcements. I don't know why. I think it's because I say dumb things and make people laugh. But like the pastor who's got all the ideas, like he's a visionary, right? Like he's a great person in our community, but he's got all the ideas. And so he'll be like, can you talk about these things? And he'll like give me these things in announcements. And if he gives me 4 things, I'm like, nope. I was like, I will only talk about 3 things because people will stop listening after 3 things. You need to save one of those till next week, and I will talk about it next week. And he's like, oh, okay. Because I think you're right. Like we can in all areas of our life, like don't overwhelm. Like that is so like we can't do it all. And like sometimes when you just simplify it, you get more done than if you made that to-do list of 20 things. Just give
Right.
yourself 3 things
3 things.
and then a pat in the back for doing them all. And
Yeah,
then
right.
give yourself another 3 things and feel great about yourself.
And for me, it's like the next day it's a check mark. Check, check, check. Right in my same journal, because now I know I did it, and that's my pat on the back. Dang it, you did that yesterday. Good job, girl. Right?
Yeah.
So thank you for that, because I do think that there's such power in action, and action is a plan. I always talk about our beliefs, evidence, action, and mindset. And action is so critical. We can think about it forever, but you've got to actually take some kind of motion in that dream, in that plan, even when it's not perfect. You don't need one more degree. You don't need one more, whatever it is. You just need to go. Just go. And you're going to fall. Well, who says it? Well, I can't remember who says it, but it's an Amazon owner. He says, I want to fail faster, right? Because that means he's going to get there faster. Because we're all going to fail at some point if we quote unquote fail, because I don't know what failing really is. But so that's a little tangent. So Erica, I love to ask everybody, what does courage mean to you?
I think this just dovetails perfectly off what you just said. Courage is doing something, anything, when you don't know how it's going to turn out.
Yes.
Because I don't know, like for my personality, I would love to know how the book is going to end before I start reading it, because then I know if it's worth it or not. Right.
Yeah.
And we don't get that in life. We don't get to know chapter 10 on page 1. you just have to start. And I think somebody, I'll say specifically to me, like, it's hard. Like, I carry anxiety and fear, and it's very easy for me to go to those places. And I think courage is not knowing how something's going to turn out, fear of how it's going to turn out, and then taking that first action step anyways.
Yes. Agreed. Agreed. Absolutely. It's not the lack of fear. It's actually stepping forth with the fear as, as your friend. So Erica, I cannot thank you enough for just taking your time to be here, for like saying yes to a total stranger. You guys, that's the power of the ask. I just reached out and said, "Hey, I'd love to have you on," and just having the courage to say, "Yeah, absolutely." We live in such an amazingly beautiful time where we can actually meet anyone, anywhere in the world, anywhere in the country, face to face, and have these conversations. And that's not lost on me at all. I think it's a beautiful blessing. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for the ask. It was so great to be here. You are a pleasure to talk to. I'm happy to be here anytime. So thank you again for having me.
Perfect. You guys, if anything in this conversation really hit you, a tidbit of advice about your business, just personal life, remember, download, share. And as always, remember, I love you and I mean it. Until next time.